MTCB.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is going on? What is going on? Man, episode 2 of the Pressure Front podcast with Lorenzo Alexander. I'm your host, JT. So, the Bills got a dub this week, started off 1-0. Fast start. What'd you see, man?
I saw a lot of great things. Obviously the offense came out and did their thing early. Was able to move the ball, go up 21-0. It was really good to see them get in the end zone multiple times. And obviously you want to cut down on the first the hits that Josh is taking, and then also the fumbles. But outside of that, I really like what I saw and want to look for more as they continue to develop the chemistry, the cohesiveness, because we didn't have preseason games. Just how to continue to gel and just become even more explosive than what they're at. And then defensively, they did what they were supposed to do. Came out. I want to see more turnovers, but they came out and were dominant, from the start to finish. You saw Tremaine and Matt go down, which I hate to see, but I think both of those guys will miss minimal time. But from Trent to Jerry to Mario Addison, really like how they got after the quarterback. Loved how our back end competed. Obviously Jordan Porter had a big play as well. And so I just want to continue to see more of that. And looking for him to get some more turnovers, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to be able to help you win games as you compete against better teams, especially as you move through this schedule.
Right. And speaking of Josh Allen, he had his first career 300-yard game this week. So, definitely congrats to him. I don't think that was a game plan, 46 passes. I don't think that was a game plan that anybody expected to come out to do in regulation. But definitely kudos to him. Completing 71% of his passes. You said before that his work ethic and his drive and his determination, just the fact that how hard he goes at it, this is not much of a surprise to you.
No, not at all. He's made leaps and bounds from his first to second year. And in my mind, knowing who Josh is, knowing the type of competitor he was, there was going to be no doubt that he was going to continue to do more of the same, especially when you add in Stephon Diggs and with the weapons that they already had, and having some consistency with the offense, that he was going to be able to put up big numbers. I was actually kind of surprised that he hadn't done it already. It hadn't been since Tyrod Taylor, several years ago in 2017, I believe, that we had a 300-yard passer. So it just shows you how much he's grown and how much more impactful this team is going to be when you start, thinking about the other teams around the league that put up a lot of points. This team is sniffing at being one of those teams too, as far as being a team that can, put up, 21, 28 style points on you.
Right. And, it's like I said, it was a very interesting game plan by Brian Daboll, because you mentioned last week that Greg Williams was going to come in, his team was going to play physical, they were going to be up in the box. And I think Brian Daboll actually keyed on that as well. And I think that actually it almost feels like, because the Bills threw so many passes, they kind of shot Greg Williams in the Jets defense a little bit.
Yeah, well, Greg, he has to figure that he's probably down a couple of his guys, obviously, right? CJ Mosley wasn't out there, Jamal Adams was gone, and so he has to take away something. He's not going to just let you do whatever you want to do. And so the main thing in any type of game is try to stop the run, make the offense play behind the sticks, and it gives you a shot to win on third down and play the field position game, especially when your team offensively is not going to be a team that could just put up points. Even though they have some explosion plays, that's not something they're going to live and die on. And so it was great to see them get the ball out of their hands quick as far as Josh, to John Brown. As we saw right there with that touchdown, really just allowing their playmakers to make a lot of plays. And so I'm looking forward to them moving forward, developing that. And because now teams have to worry about Josh as well, because he ran the ball, I think, very effectively. So it's going to be interesting how they decide they want to attack the Dolphins this week. But I think it's going to start on the ground.
Yeah, and you know what? Going back to the debut of Stephon Diggs. Now, I got a question for you, because you guys paid Stephon in Minnesota in what, 2017? 2018?
We played him in 18, I believe,
right.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything that you guys said probably about keying in on him as far as preparation went before that game?
No, that was Tre'Davious' job was to, I think Tre'Davious might have tracked him that year, even though he was a rookie, and shadowed him. And I think even Tre'Davious said, even leading up or maybe even shortly after that game, said he was probably the best receiver that he had faced at that time. And even later, after he had went through his rookie year, one of the top guys. So obviously he's a guy that can, run every route, tough, has great hands, is very explosive. And it's going to be interesting to see how he continues to obviously find his role, and him and Josh find that chemistry to where he really is able to take over a game. But he's opening up stuff for other people, because, people are going to naturally try to figure out who they want to take away. And if they want to take away Diggs, then other guys are going to get open. Other guys are going to make plays, and then they're going to have to come off of him, and that's when he'll get his.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that Diggs played an amazing game. I didn't expect 8 catches for 86 yards. I'll be honest with you. I expected more of maybe about four catches, 40 yards. Normally you get a new player coming to a new team, they have to gel a little bit. And obviously we had the lack of practice time and things like that we've already mentioned before. But I thought he looked great. I thought he opened up the lot for John Brown. Thought he opened up for Cole Beasley,
and that's what he's going to continue to do. He had 8 for 80, as you said, or 86. And so they're going to be able to spread the ball around and get everybody involved. Cole Beasley eventually come alive, Dawson Knox, Singletary. But these guys are pros, right? And so even when you have a guy that comes in from out of a different offense, doesn't mean that he can't put up points, especially when he is the type of player that Diggs is. I'm out here in Phoenix, and we saw Hopkins do this. Obviously, he had like 14 for 150, but he's a new guy on this offense. But because of the caliber of player he is, it really doesn't matter. And the same thing goes with Diggs. You put him on any roster, as soon as he's there, he's going to make plays. They talk a lot. They can talk ball. Him and Josh have been doing that in practice and training camp. And even though the time is being condensed, because of the caliber of player he is, that learning curve is a lot smaller than maybe a younger receiver or somebody that's not as proven coming to a new team as a free agent versus a caliber player that Diggs is.
Right. Another player I really want to talk about, Andre Roberts. Now, one of your 3 keys to the game last week was special teams and setting up good field. I thought Roberts had a day.
Dre had a big day, and if you ask him, he left a couple out there. There was one kickoff that should have went to the house. I think a guy just kind of nipped his legs. And then there was one punt return that if one guy just kind of pushes his guy a little bit, he takes it to the house too. This is not it. But he had two that he had a real chance to get up on the kicker. Once Dre gets up on the kicker, he's taking it to the house. So I was really impressed what he did. Obviously, his returns gave the offense great field position. And even times when they didn't score, they had flipped the field. So the defense then had to make the opposing offense had to drive, 80 plus yards to get a touchdown. And they're just not good enough against this Bills defense to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the defense played stout. I mean, you mentioned everybody executed their assignment. Now, one of the keys was also stopping Le'Veon Bell, maintain gap integrity, and I thought they did that very well.
Yeah, they did that great. Obviously, Le'Veon went out of the game with a hammy early in the game, but even before then, he wasn't being too dominant. But he's a guy that has to kind of build up, and I think he gets stronger as the game on. And obviously, this is his first game back, and he was already probably hampered with that hammy going into the game. So they did a great job stopping the run, minimizing. I thought they did a really good job of tackling, and when they did miss tackles, guys were flying around and covering up each other. Outside of that one play to Crowder that got on the outside, and he went, the distance.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. I mean, like I said, that was a missed tackle, and I believe Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott talked about the game that you got to make that tackle, and I actually believe that's also the play that Tremaine got hurt on. So, I mean, obviously you won't see that happen, but outside of that one play, I mean, they pretty much held this Jets offense to little or nothing. And I mean, I think Darno had
that play, and then I think Le'Veon might have had another catch for like 30 yards on the outside.
Yeah, the fade on the left-hand side.
Fade route. Right. Yep. And I think that was one of two explosion plays when you look back at the game that they had. And outside of that, the defense was pretty stout all game. But as you start playing better teams that have more weapons, those are the plays that you have to eliminate, because it's going to be it's always hard that a team that's able to drive the ball, and if they have explosion plays as well, you most of the time end up losing that game. The same thing with the turnovers. And so even though we won the game, as in the Bills, they still have to continue to work on those little things that's going to allow them to be great, not just good, because I know that in that room, they want to go to the playoffs, hopefully win the division, be a number one seed, and set themselves up to win a Super Bowl. And you can't take for granted. And so we used to always say it's better to learn in a win than in a loss. So I know those guys are in this week. They're happy, they were excited, but they see those little things that's going to separate them that they need to continue to work on.
Yeah, most definitely. Another guy, before we move on to this Dolphin Week 2 game, another guy who stepped in, that's when Tremaine went down and Matt went down, Tyler Dotson. Now, this is a name that's not have been mentioned a lot, and I thought this guy, he had, from all reports, that he had a great camp with you guys last season. And this season, he stepped in, and the Bills didn't miss a beat. Can you give us a little bit insight on who Tyler Dotson, the player, is?
Yeah, T-Dot has really grown, really developed and matured, I think, on and off the field, and has really gained the trust of not only Bob Babbage, the linebacker coach, but the rest of the guys in that room. I think really doing this training camp, when he was out there with the twos, being a leader, getting guys aligned with confidence, understanding the calls and making adjustments, really started without, preseason games, really starting to develop a rapport and a sense of a respect where if Tremaine went down, as we saw in this first game, that there wasn't going to be a sense of panic. And like you said, I thought he went in, did a good job. There's probably some things looking back that he probably would clean up too, but that's part of playing football. But it wasn't like it just, went all like hectic step. He went in there, had confidence, had a great operation. And so I was really good to see him get his feet wet, had a sack as well on Donald. And so I'm just looking for his continued development. Obviously, if Tremaine plays, he'll go back to a special teams role. But now he knows, what it's like. Okay, I have to prepare, because at any moment, my number could be called as far as being thrusted in that starting lineup. And so with the linebacker core kind of being beat up this week, I know he's going to make sure that he's locked in on his keys and what he needs to get done.
Right. So, I mean, I thought overall, I give the team it was a great performance in all phases of the game. And we have to, a lot of times people forget there's 3 phases of the game. There's offense, defense, special teams. And I thought the Bills did phenomenal in all 3 phases. Obviously, room to improve, but to come out week 1, very limited practice time, no fans in the crowd, they handled their business.
Yeah,
So
they did. They did. They came out with a lot of juice and energy.
I got a question for you. We always hear these guys. This is a personal question for me. We always hear people asked about say about what the guy did a 111th. Can you explain what the 111th is?
Yeah, just doing your job. I mean, it's 11 guys on the field at any given team for your for whatever phase you're playing, offense, defense, special teams, and it's doing your job, no more, no less. And when you put all those parts together, you want to be greater than the sum of your parts. And that's just when guys are operating at a high level and just being dominant and flying around and making plays. And when guys are doing their job, they just seem to transcend just doing your job, and they become really dominant and cohesive. And then you see a team like the Bills do it, perennially, like the Ravens or the Steelers defense, or any offense that just operates at another level. If everybody's just taking care of what they need to do, the outcome will be much better if you just have 9 guys doing their job or 10 guys doing their job.
Okay. Makes sense. I always heard it in the press conferences, and I'm like, well, what does it mean? I'm asking what it means. But
yeah.
No. So this week, the team are taking a business trip down to Miami. This is a team that Buffalo beat twice last year. A lot of familiar faces over there. Got a new OC in Chan Gailey, who's a familiar face to Buffalo Bills fans. You got Brian Flores for his second tenure in Miami, and you got Ryan Fitzpatrick starting. Now, what's interesting about the Ryan Fitzpatrick starting angle is they did mention this week that Flores said Fitz was going to be his starting quarterback going to this game, and I think as a coach and as a team, you never want to hear that conversation. I have to make that statement this early in the season.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. We know at some point you're going to see Tua.
Tua, right. But he has to. I mean, you are going to hear it because they took a quarterback in the first round, and it's Tua that went to Alabama, and we all know what he was able to do. So those are questions that just are naturally the natural progression, especially when you lose. Yeah. And he didn't play, so they're just waiting. When is it going to be? When is that timeline in Flores' mind? Is it 0-2? Is it 0-3? Is it 2-4? What does it look like before you put him in there to start letting him get some live game reps that you've seen around the league with a lot of young quarterbacks?
Right. And knowing that, is this a game where, as a defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, they're going to have their meetings this week? Do you have to kind of prepare for 2 quarterbacks possibly?
I don't know if they're going to put Tua in quite this early, especially if the team is being dominant and getting to Fitz. You definitely don't want to throw Tua in there without getting a significant amount of game reps during the week to make sure that he feels comfortable going out there, because talent and skill is one thing, but playing with confidence is a whole nother. And you never want to have a guy that has this type of potential and skill level to get shell-shocked because he wasn't prepared. And so I don't know if Flores will expose him to anything if it looks just like all bad. But that's just kind of my opinion on the matter. But don't look past Fitz now. He has this thing called Fitz magic, and we've all seen it. The Bills Mafia's experienced it when he was with the Buffalo Bills. And so don't look past this team. Even though they lost last week, getting a chance to kind of look back over the film, they were in that game into the fourth quarter. Fitz had a couple of interceptions that he threw early. I think that's something that he's kind of been known for. And so that's actually one of the keys that we'll talk about later. But even with those 2 interceptions in the first half, they were right there in the hunt of this game with the Patriots, led by Cam Newton last week. So, at some point Tua will get a chance to play, but do not look past Fitz and what he's going to want to come out here and do, because he's a competitor at heart. Every time somebody says, it's just Fitz, that's when he shows up, throws for 350, three touchdowns, runs over a couple of people, and you're looking around like, what is going on? So I know this team won't look past him because we've competed against him, and he's had some success when I've played against him.
Right. And, it's funny talking about Fitz. And you're right, that Fitz magic. This is a guy who you would call probably a consummate professional. He's always ready to go. He's always ready to play. And he just has you can tell he has this love for the game.
Right.
Winning or losing, he has a love for a game. I mean, and you go back to that week 5 or week 6 matchup was last year, he gave us a couple of problems here in Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's going to compete to the end. The game is never over. I mean, as you can see on the screen, he just scrambled around, shugging guys off, trucked somebody to get in the end zone. He's a competitor. He's a baller. Obviously his really only big flaw that you see is that he'll throw you the ball. And so that's where his teams normally get in trouble, because he'll have a couple of interceptions at the bad times, and it'll put his team at a disadvantage. But he can put up, 350, like I said, very easily, 300 yards. And you may look around the guys and say, oh, well, he really doesn't have too many guys around him, but they'll get on a roll, make it happen. And he's the type of guy that because he is such a competitor and a leader, and he's so physical, guys normally raise their game up for him, and they love playing with him. And so they go above and beyond what you may see. And like I said, this, greater than the sum of your parts. He's a catalyst for allowing that or creating that environment on a team.
Yeah. Another thing is too, I guess what fits is him pairing him again with Chan Gailey. Now, you've been in this league for you were in this league for a long time, and Chan Gailey has been around forever, but he still has a modern style type of playbook, which is one of the reasons that Brian Flores brought him in out of retirement. How is this team preparing? How is Coach Les, how is Coach McDermott going to prepare to go against a Chan Gailey-led offense?
Well, they'll just look at the film from last week. It's still kind of early to really figure out tendencies, but they're just kind of looking at last week. They had some formations that continually popped up, some runs that they really liked, and they'll just have to really just game plan for what they saw, how he kind of developed throughout the game. Obviously, things change when you're playing with a deficit in a sense, but they were always in that game, so they was always kind of be able to stay true. They continue to try to run the ball, as well as throw the ball around a little bit. And so it's just all about just identifying those things, cutting out the fat. Some of the things that coordinators kind of do just to kind of throw a wrinkle in there to make you have to defend it, but really not really running it. And so those guys will identify what those plays are, toss those to the side, and really look at the nucleus of what Miami did versus the Patriots last week.
Right. Chan Gailey he's always been able to put good offenses on the field. So, normally what you're going to see from him, you're going to see a lot of crossing routes.
Right.
You're going to see a lot of spread. Last week, Jordan Howard couldn't really get it going, but this is a guy who's Buffalo actually has seen 2 years in a row, I believe, back to back. 1 year with the Bears and 1 year with Miami not Miami, but the Philadelphia game last year. And he's done a job on Buffalo. So you're preparing for him, you're preparing for Matt Breida, and you also have to prepare for Myles Gaskin. Are the Bills going to load the box against this Miami team knowing that they may be down Devontae Parker probably? Or do you think they just sit back and just do what they do as normal?
Yeah, I think they're going to play their base defense. I don't think they at this point have to come up with anything out of the ordinary. And so it's all about personnel and how they want to decide they want to match up and what is Miami doing. And so are they coming out in a lot of 11 personnel? Is it 21? How are they being attacked? And that'll let you know whether or not the Bills want to go a traditional base or maybe a nickel or a Buffalo package. But based on them liking to pass the ball and using their tight end, Mike Gesicki, who's more of a receiver type, you can definitely see the Bills utilizing some of the packages they had last week, where you had maybe another safety on the field versus actually having a third linebacker, just to match up better when they decide they want to pass the ball.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki is a name that, for me, that's one of the key players this week going against Buffalo. Obviously, we know Miami's number 2 receiver, Allen Hurns, number 3, Albert Wilson. I believe they both opted out of the season. And you have Devontae Parker, who's an injury list. But Gesicki can be a problem. That could be a matchup nightmare. And like the point you alluded to, he is more of a receiving type of tight end. And normally in Chan Gailey's offices, he does not utilize a tight end that much. But Gesicki is a different type of monster out there.
Right, yeah. And anytime you have a great athlete, a baller, and it may be a position that you don't normally utilize, if you're any type of coach, if you have any type of work to you, you're going to find ways to make things happen with that player and utilizing. And so you'll see some targets to him. They're definitely going to try to isolate him and get him on maybe a linebacker or maybe a safety that they think he has a matchup on. But even over the last couple of years, he's always been a big part of their offense as far as how they try to attack and using in the scheme of the game.
Right. So going back to Buffalo's offense, we know that Miami has about 5 to 6 new players on their defense. Obviously, they picked up some names in Calvin Noy, Byron Jones, and an old teammate of yours, Shaq Lawson, who's actually he had some really good things to say about Josh this week. He called him a dog. He said, man, he's been a dog, and that he's 10 times better this year than he was last year. And it is no surprise to him much to do what you said as well. How do you prepare to block Shaq Lawson and Calvin Noy?
Right. And their defense is solid. I thought the Patriots ran the ball fairly well on them last week, and so you definitely want to attack them there. But whoever's blocking Shaq, just because he has a history here, he's been in our locker room, and he's considered a brother. He's gonna come with his lunch pail, hard hat as well, and so he's gonna be out there talking trash and bringing the energy. And so, whether it's Dion or Ty or whoever it may be that's lined up across from him. Just be ready for the energy and his mouth running the whole game, because if he makes a play, he's going to let everybody know about it. But I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see that matchup, and I'll be kind of eyeing in on Shaq throughout the game and see what type of heat he's bringing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Shaq always bring the energy, always bring the motor. Can you just take a second to describe what kind of teammate Shaq Lawson is? Because from the outside looking in, you see this happy-go-lucky, vibrant guy, a real culture guy.
Yeah, he was awesome. And he grew up a lot. He was a rookie at 16, my first year here as well, under Rex Ryan. And so I was with him for 4 years. And so we got a great bond and just helping him develop on and off the field. And he's grown immensely, just a maturity-wise, professional, how he prepares, takes care of his body, how he's living off the field, all those things. He's really grown up. And so he's a guy that just infectious, love to be around, always knows how to have a good time. And especially when you're playing with him, he's a guy that you want to take in that dark alley or playing that hard team, because he's going to be that dog and have your back. And I just always think about even the Jaguars game a couple of years ago, on the sideline, and I'm out there with him. It's just, those are the type of dudes that you'll remember forever, have a great time with, because not only is he a dog, he's a comedian, and he's always there. Great dude in the community. So I could talk about Shaq all day, have a lot of great things, and that's why I'm so excited just to watch him play and compete. And see what he brings to the table this week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Shaq did a lot of good things in Buffalo community as well, and we don't want to leave that out, because a lot of times when you lose players, whether it be retirement, free agency, trades, Saudi's players, and I'll mention John Miller in here as well. You lose a part of being part of the community, and that's a big deal.
It is. Obviously the Buffalo the community is awesome, and it's really more like family. I don't think I've been in any other city or organization where it felt so connected. It wasn't the Bills and the fan base. It was more like just one Bills drive, one team, and it truly felt like that. Just how we supported each other in the community, how the fans came out and supported us as well, volunteering, doing different things, and really just helping us make even a bigger impact. And those two guys that you just mentioned were a huge piece of that, during my tenure in Buffalo as well.
Yeah, definitely. But hey, hopefully, hopefully Shaq stays healthy. He has a good season, but we need him to kind of relax a little bit this game.
Right. Yeah.
So on the defensive side for Miami, they also added Calvin Noy, who's Buffalo's also familiar with, and Byron Jones. Once again, another key player that they brought in that Buffalo played against last year in Dallas. Can they key in on some of the things that these guys do, or are these guys that say Brian Dable may say, okay, I'm going to stay away from Brian Jones' side of the field because you got a rookie on the other side of the field over here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're, if the Bills are scared of anybody as far as not going at them or challenging them based on the talent that is on the offensive side of the ball. Everybody has a certain skill set and ability, and so yes, maybe I'm going to pick on the rookie instead of a veteran. But at the same time, because you've played against him so much, because he has been in the division, that you have a better understanding of some of his weaknesses as well, or maybe some of the things that he's messed up on and hasn't quite corrected in his game. Everybody has that about them. And so maybe you attack those things. And because of that familiarity, you may be able to exploit some of those weaknesses that you've exposed or seen, practicing with them. When you think about Dable being in that Patriots organization, that you can really go out there and try to attack, even though, they are great players and can make plays, but you're not necessarily so scared of going at them.
Right. And, it's funny that you mentioned that the Patriot organization, and obviously we realized that Brian Flores and Brian Dable were part of the organization at the same time. When it comes to matchups like this, the familiarity between the two, does it help preparation for both coaches on both ends and say, hey, I remember Brian used to have these type of tendencies, or they're both Brian, but I remember Dable used to have these type of tendencies and Flores used to have these type of tendencies.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, any type of relationship you've had or understanding, because even when they were with the organization, I'm pretty sure they had talks going back and forth. Hey, what would you do? Or what have you seen? Or what are you thinking when you're attacking this type of offense or defense? And so that familiarity definitely helps when you're able to speak to certain guys or the team as far as how you're going to attack them this week. And so at that point, in my mind, it comes down to the guys and the execution, because you can know what somebody likes to do and what they're going to do based on formations or things you've seen on film or things you've seen them do in the past, or understanding of how they like to operate in certain situations. But if you don't go out there and execute it as a player and me take that information, Dable may know it or Flores may know it. But as a player, if I can't take what they're telling me to the field and then go and execute it, it really doesn't matter. For the most part, unless it's maybe like a blitz or something that you dial up and it's at the perfect time because protection. But as far as, okay, I know this dude is about to run a dig route. Well, if I'm not good enough to go out here and stop Stephon Diggs or John Brown because they just went deep on me the last one, I'm thinking about that and I forget about the dig. It doesn't matter. And so players have to be able to take that information and then recognize it within the chaos that can present itself in a game.
Right. And, speaking of protection, once again, this is a rebuilt Miami team. And unfortunately, like I said, I think that those guys over there, Chris Greer, Reggie McKenzie, Brian Flores, I think they've done a really good job of attempting to build a new core, a new nucleus. But obviously with an offseason like this and bringing a bunch of new players in, you're probably going to be a little bit behind some of the other teams the first 4 or 5 games of the season till you build some continuity. But Miami has 4 new offensive linemen. How difficult is that, especially going to season with no preseason and coming to a Bills team that runs a rotation of 8 linemen a game?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because offensive linemen, you can be great individually, but if you don't have that cohesiveness collectively, you're really not going to show out. I mean, I remember going against some linemen that weren't that good, but because they worked well together, that they were the best offensive line in the league. But if you take either one of those out of the call, they weren't good. And because they haven't been able to develop that chemistry quite yet, I think you'll be able to take advantage of some, different looks, some games, some stunts. Even watching the New England game back last week, you saw them run a lot of twists. And the offensive linemen just weren't picking it up. They weren't passing it off right. They were, a tad slow just because they lacked the communication and hadn't seen it yet either. Like I said, a lot of times when you don't have the film, you can't even tell a guy before the play happens, hey, look out for this. And now you don't have a great ability to communicate because you haven't worked together. And so now you it's kind of like a double negative. And so you either even a little bit further behind. And so I see them maybe taking some of the things the Patriots did last week and dialing up some of those games because it was effective. And the Patriots, was able to get the fits and hit him a couple of times and really kind of throw him off throughout the game.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're definitely correct. I mean, we got to assume that Shaq Lawson's going to do the best he can to educate his teammates this week of this. I'll call them hot Buffalo team because, I mean, they've been hot since last season. It seemed like they kept that trend rolling week 1 coming down to Miami. So they don't have the result that they had that second game last year. Because, I mean, you guys went down there that second game in Miami and just took it to them from the beginning to the end and didn't hold up at all. The running game. You got Devin Singletary. You got Zach Moss. They're going to be playing in front of, I mean, I know it's only 13,000 fans, but you got to assume that since they both from South Florida, there's going to be a lot of family in those stands.
Yeah, I see a lot of them. I see a whole bunch of Zach and Singletary this week. I mean, just watching the game again last week, the Dolphins run game versus the Patriots. I thought the Patriots ran the ball pretty much at will and against them, 6-7 yards a pop. It felt like watching the game. And so I think it's going to be a heavy dose of those guys and then, going on some play actions and trying to get some shots down the field and have some more explosion plays. But this game is definitely going to be one as far as how the offensive line blocks and really running that ball and taking it to some of those guys especially the inside linebackers. I think if there's maybe a weakness or a place where they're not as stout up front, is really isolating some of those guys off the ball and allowing Zach and Singletary to take advantage of those guys in the run game.
Right. I mean, and we know that out of his career, Josh Allen's best games up until last week have somehow always seemed to come against Miami. I don't know. He just gets up for this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, going down to Miami, it's lights come on. It's South Beach, and Josh has that personality about him. Anytime it feels like it's a big game or a real great environment, he just shows up and shows out. So I don't see anything being any different, this week for him, and just kind of growing off of last week and continue to make some plays. And, I think he's going to have pretty much a repeat performance, if not even get a little bit better, because there were some things that he even missed on in the game that he won't miss on again this season, and as well as protecting the ball. And I think you see, instead of scoring, what did they have last week? 24 points,
27, yeah,
27 points. They can get into the 30s this week.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they left some plays on the field. This team easily, I mean, you figure you had 2 missed field goals last week, and you missed that easy touchdown throw to John Brown. They could easily have 40 on the board.
Yeah, and they had a couple of drives where he fumbled going in. So
yeah,
I mean, those things paying up to points, and so they have the ability to do it. And I think it starts with the run game, and then the play action is going to really help them this week as far as being able to stretch the field and take some shots.
Right, and it's funny because they ran 18 play action passes last week, and I think he converted on 16 out of 18 of those. He's very comfortable with the play action. Before we get to your 3 keys of the game, with Josh Allen and the way this offense looked last week, if this team can score, let's say 27 points a game, how dangerous could this Buffalo Bills team be in 2020?
Well, they're going to win the division if they score, and if they're going to average 27 points a game. There's just not too many teams that can do that. And then couple that with the defense and how stout they can be. They gave up a couple of points late in that game, minus Tremaine and Matt. It's going to be hard to beat them. If you're scoring 27 and holding people to like 17, the goal is 14. But if you can hold them to 17 with that, you're going to win a lot of football games. Because I don't know how many times over the last 3 seasons that, let alone 27, but like 24 or 21 points were scored. So those games, scoring that type of points in this league is going to be a game changer.
Yeah. So Zoe, let's get to it, man. It's Bills Dolphin week. A lot of Bills fans love to say it's squish the fish week. What's your 3 keys to the game so the Bills can actually squish the fish?
Yeah, I think it starts up front with the run game, really getting Zach and Devin going, really dominating the line of scrimmage and trying to average close to 4 yards a game, and then maybe having even a big time run so you can set up that play action game once again. I know Josh ran the ball a lot last week, but I'd much rather see Devin and Zach doing it. So I think that's number 1 because I felt like the Dolphins struggled in that area a little bit versus the Patriots. Number 2 is you can't turn the ball over again this week. We have to minimize those because those will eventually catch up with you. And if you give Fitz too many opportunities, he'll eventually cash in and find a way to get in the end zone or put points on the board, whatever that looks like. And I would say lastly, again, it's for the defense to find ways to get the ball out even more than what they did last week. We need a couple of interceptions, a couple of balls on the ground to really start getting that vibe going, because it's almost something you create culturally. And once one guy gets it, the next guy gets it. So that's really going to be the difference maker in far as being a top 5 defense or being the best defense in the league is going to come down to creating those turnovers. And so no better week than to start with Fitz, because he's good for throwing you at least a couple of games. So catch the ones he throws to you. Tip and overthrows, got to get those is what they say.
All right. Hey, Zoe, you know best, man. So like I said, I'm going to go with you. Like I said, we can't give Fitz any checks to cash this week. I agree with you there. A couple announcements here, guys. If you have not got over to the Twitter page yet, go to at Pressure Front 57. That is the official Twitter page for this show. Make sure that you're tuning in every Thursday. We're going to be here every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. If anything changes, we'll let you know. And actually, in the near future, we're going to be turning this to a simulcast. So if you're at the gym, you're at work, if you're in school, you should be doing your schoolwork. But in case you want to put a podcast on, go and put the pressure front on to get ready for the Bills game day. I wanted to thank my co-host, Lorenzo Alexander, once again for all the awesome insight. So anything going on with you in the near future, community-wise, anything? What's going on?
No, we're just hanging out, trying to put some stuff together. Actually going to be working with Victory Sports, as you mentioned, that doing a literacy program there in Buffalo, as far as helping kids, just get some books in their hands, reading, and then creating some incentive type of program where you read books and then you can win a prize, whether that's some Bills gear or an autographed picture. But really trying to emphasize, especially as I've transitioned out of the league, you just realize how important reading is and how much it helps just learning and growing and not being complacent to where you're at. And this just broadens your perspective and the tools that you have and having your own knowledge versus relying on somebody to tell you something.
No, that reading is fundamental. That's what they used to say back in the day. It still stands, man. It still stands. Exactly. Well, hey, once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We had a good show. If you're not, you catch the recap. We will be playing the recap tomorrow again. And once again, thanks to my co-host, Zoe. Zoe, Squish the Fish Week. Let's go, Buffalo. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us next week again at 9:30. Same place, same time, same location. Catch you later, everybody.